But we do begin this morning with the latest on Ian, getting stronger overnight, now growing to a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour.
Ian is in the Caribbean Sea now, and hurricane warnings are posted for Grand Cayman as well as western Cuba, where hurricane-force winds, flash flooding, and storm surges are likely. Ian is expected to make landfall along the Florida Gulf Coast later this week, and people throughout the state are bracing for impact. All weekend long, they've been stocking up on food, water, and gas, and preparing sandbags ahead of the storm. Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for the entire state of Florida, and President Biden approved an emergency declaration over the weekend. Local leaders are telling people not to wait. Now is the time to get prepared.
As we've all seen, this storm is unpredictable. Don't rely on just the main forecast line, and don't be complacent. Make sure you know your emergency plan and your hurricane supply kits are prepared.
We're covering the storm's latest developments from all angles. We're going to begin with NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber in Tampa, Florida. So, Ellison, we know there's a lot of uncertainty this far out about exactly where Ian is going to make landfall, but we just heard that official urging people take this seriously. How are people in Tampa preparing right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, for better or worse, Floridians are used to this, and they are preparing accordingly. This Home Depot, they just got in a new shipment of a bunch of gas canisters, generators, and even just cases and cases of water. There's been a steady flow of people. You can see this guy over here grabbing a generator and 2 gas cans coming in to get stocked up in the event that they need these supplies. That's really the main message we're hearing from officials right now, is to get prepared now. Make sure you have everything you need in the event that you need it. Don't wait, because there's a lot of potential here, even though there is still uncertainty that you could see a lot of rain, high winds, storm surge, and that people need to do everything they can now so that they're in a position to deal with it when that hurricane eventually hits land here. Listen to what some people have said. They, again, are all saying what we hear so often from Floridians. They've been here before, but they're preparing just in case. Listen.
You're staying home trying to ride it out, you definitely want to fill up your tub with water, and just be prepared and listen to all the alerts, and if you're told to evacuate, make sure you get out.
I don't think we should panic. I don't think, it's part of living here in Florida. We should always definitely be prepared for the worst, of course, but not panic.
Really just came for a generator. No gas in Florida makes living difficult if you don't have electricity.
One other thing officials have said in recent press conferences, they're urging people to not get too wedded to some of the models that they're seeing where it shows the specific cone and the specific dots, because they say there's a wide range of where this storm could go and that the impacts could be broadly felt across Florida. So they really want everyone in every county, all 67 of them, to be prepared. Stephen, Joe.
Always good advice, Ellison. So we know the governor declared a state of emergency. The president quickly approved that on the federal level. What sort of resources does that provide the state as they prepare for this?
Yeah, I mean, that's all about another step of being prepared, right? It frees up money earlier so that if people say, hey, we need extra things here, there for resources, particularly after the storm has kind of made its way out, that they have access to the funding that they need. It also moves the National Guard onto standby. Everybody is sort of in this prepare stage, and that includes the federal as well as the state government. So that's what we're seeing as they're issuing some of these declarations, orders early, so that they and their teams can be in positions to respond as needed. One of the things that they're doing here at the state level, according to some of the emergency managers in this state, is that they are pre-positioning supplies in the event counties call saying they need it. So they have over 360 trailers filled with some 2 million plus meals and over 1 million gallons of water in the event one of their counties calls them and says, hey, we need those supplies and we need them now. They're already loaded up on a trailer in a staging area, ready to go. Joe, Stephen.
Right. Ellison Barber, and something tells me all of those gas canisters and water supplies behind you will be greatly depleted the next time we see you later on today. Ellison, thank you so much.
Well, joining us now with more on this is Binks. She's the Assistant Administrator for Response and Recovery at FEMA. Ann, good morning. Thanks for being here. So Ian, now a Category 1 hurricane, likely to grow stronger in the coming days before it may hit Florida later this week. So if you could give us an update on what FEMA is doing right now to help people ahead of the storm.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me. Yes, as the reporter mentioned, right now we are working to pre-position commodities and supplies, things like food, water, generator support, as well as pre-positioning our specialized teams to ensure that we can respond quickly post landfall. You know, what we're looking at now is the cone is wide and impacts will be felt outside of that cone. So to reiterate what we've just heard, it's very important that folks have an evacuation plan, have a readiness plan, and execute that plan.
And yesterday, Governor Ron DeSantis had this to say about the potential effects of Ian on Florida. Let's listen.
It's important to point out to folks that the path of this is still uncertain. The impacts will be broad throughout the state of Florida. Anticipate power outages. That is something that will likely to happen with a hurricane of this magnitude. Anticipate fuel disruptions.
So we hear him talking about power outages and fuel disruptions. What plans should people be taking now to make sure they have what they're going to need to stay safe?
Absolutely. With the rapid intensification of this storm, it is highly likely there will be power outages upon and even possibly before landfall. It's very important to go to ready.gov and make your plans. It's also important to download the FEMA app where you can get emergency alerts and warnings. Listen to your local officials. If they urge evacuation, heed those warnings. This is a very large and powerful storm system that will not only drive heavy rains and storm surge, but also dangerous winds.
And you mentioned evacuations. From what we could tell right now, do you expect that people will be asked to evacuate?
So know your zones. Those decisions will be made at the local level. So pay attention to your local officials. Make sure you're ready. The best thing to do right now is also to be linked up with your friends, family, your neighbors, folks that will need extra time to potentially move out or have additional needs at home. Make sure you're checking on them. Make sure you have an extra key for their house, that you know where their medications are. And Florida's leaning into this. They've set up a website called floridadisaster.org. If you have medical needs that require electricity with your medical equipment, or you have medications that require refrigeration, please register so the state knows where you are and local officials do, so we can respond to your needs post-landfall.
Some important tips there. And moving forward after the storm hits, we saw how wide that cone is. What resources will be available to help people recover from the potential effects of Ian?
And depending on the effects, you know, sheltering may be necessary. You can also find that in the FEMA.gov app. But just make sure you're keeping aware, keeping alert, and checking on each other throughout the storm. And we'll, again, all those pre-positioned resources and teams I spoke about earlier will all be available to bring to bear with the state. I want to say, too, Florida's really leaning into their preparedness here, and we stand in lockstep with them.
Hoping for the best here, but preparation is so key. Ann Bink, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A lot of folks keeping an eye on the weather. So are we as Hurricane Ian approaches.
Yes, NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now with more on Ian. Good morning, Michelle.
Hey there, guys. Great to see you. And we're going to be watching Ian very closely this week. It's going to be really until Thursday night, Friday, where we see that landfall. So as of the latest advisory, it is now a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane at 75 miles per hour. It is 90 miles south of Grand Cayman, and we're seeing those impacts on the island there, moving northwest at 14 miles per hour. So first it will impact Grand Cayman today, and then eventually impacting Cuba later on today. We do have tropical alerts, many of them hurricane warning. That is in the red for the western portion of Cuba. We have a tropical storm warning, too, for central Cuba. A tropical storm warning is posted for the Keys, and then look at parts of southwestern Florida. We're looking at a hurricane watch that is in pink, and yellow is a tropical storm watch. So we're getting prepared here, like Ann mentioned. They're leaning into it. This is going to be a tough go for them as we go throughout this week. So let's look at the track here. We're looking by Tuesday morning, just 24 hours from now, a little less than that. We're looking at a Category 3 storm. So we do expect this to blossom. It's going to rapidly intensify as it approaches Cuba. It's going to be tough there. We're going to have life-threatening mudslides, life-threatening landslides, life-threatening storm surge, really heavy rainfall, up to 16 inches in some cases, and hurricane force winds. Then it's going to enter the Gulf. It's going to slow down and widen. We're going to see a Category 4 storm by Wednesday morning, remaining a Category 4 storm for quite some time. So Notice that cone of concern sort of touching the peninsula of Florida. We could feel those impacts as early as late Tuesday, Wednesday into the peninsula of Florida. Key West, you're going to feel that later on tonight into Tuesday. So now is the time to prepare. If you didn't get the plywood, you didn't get the gas, you didn't get the water, you need to do that today because that window is closing. Then as we go out Thursday into Friday, that's where we expect the landfall. We do expect it to weaken somewhat. It's going to encounter some drier air, some wind shear, but still a really strong storm. And notice that cone. We've been talking about this, how it sort of widens out. Still really uncertain because we're 4 or 5 days out from this, where that landfall is going to be. So the takeaway is when you see a cone like this, where you see that line, there's an equal opportunity for that landfall to be occurring on that line. And it is wide. So anywhere from the panhandle of Florida, the Big Bend of Florida, down to the peninsula of Florida, north, central, even southern Florida could see an impact. And then we're going to still see tropical storm force winds as it enters into the southwest and Carolinas. You're going to get a lot of rain as well, too. Storm surge alerts. This is a big one. Storm surge is a wall of water as it moves onshore. On the west coast of Florida, especially around Tampa, it is tough to get that water back out. So we are concerned for this. Where you see the purple, that is your storm surge watches. We're looking anywhere up to 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. That includes Tampa, 4 to 7. A little further down the Keys, you're going to see 1 to 3 feet. A lot of rainfall is expected as well, up to 10 inches in some spots, even locally up to 15 inches. Some of this soil is sandy. It can accept some of that water, but that is still a lot of water. And it's going to be raining for days and days as we're going to feel that impact early by the middle of the week through at least Saturday, at least through the weekend. And we're looking at the winds as well. Remember that ground is going to be really saturated. Trees are going to come down. Power lines are going to come down. We're going to see those power outages. Real quick, we're looking at heavy rain today in the Great Lakes, showers and storms in Florida, and we're looking at record heat, too, in the west. Back to you guys.
Right, yeah, with the hurricane, rain, wind, storm surge, so many things to keep an eye on. All right, Michelle, thank you so much. Well, the focus is on Ian this morning, but the cleanup is still ongoing from the damage caused by Fiona. In Puerto Rico, about half of the island is still without power 1 week after Fiona made landfall there. And they're just beginning to clean up in Canada after the storm hit this weekend, causing extensive damage there. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa has the latest from Nova Scotia.
A daunting recovery along Canada's east coast. A task so massive, the Canadian Armed Forces called in to help.
People have seen their homes washed away, seen the winds rip schools, roofs off. But as Canadians, as we always do in times of difficulty, we will be there for each other.
The strongest storm ever to slam the nation, post-tropical cyclone Fiona brought wind gusts up to 100 miles an hour and torrential floods, decimating parts of Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, and beyond. Entire homes swept to sea. One woman still missing. Power knocked out for $500,000.
Amid these massive power outages, this is one of 3 working gas stations in all of hard-hit Pictou County. And look at this line. People are waiting more than 4 hours to fill up. Are you relieved just to see a working gas station?
I am, yeah. We have a generator at home, so I'm just anxious to get that gas so we can get it up and running.
Up and down Canada's coast, countless evacuees desperate to see what's left of the lives they knew.
You cannot go to your homes now. Unfortunately, this is going to take days, could take weeks, could take months.
Meanwhile, Fiona's overall death count rising, 18 killed so far. Most in Puerto Rico, where more than 800,000 remain without power a week after Fiona hit.
And back here in Trenton in Nova Scotia, this is what progress in the cleanup process looks like. Mangled roofing and siding that was just piled up here by local construction crews. And for reference, officials don't think stuff like this is bad enough to warrant sending Canada's military to this area. They see them going to regions that were even harder hit. Back to you.
All right, Maggie Vespa in Canada. Maggie, thank you. Turning now to the latest on the January 6th investigation and a big week ahead.
That's right. The House committee investigating the attack on the Capitol will hold its next public hearing on Wednesday, possibly the final public hearing before the midterms. NBC News reporter Julie Sirkin joins us now with more on this. Julie, good morning to you. First, if you could walk us through what we should expect to hear from the committee on Wednesday.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, first of all, we don't have any witness list or a topic for Wednesday's hearing, but panel members were all over the Sunday shows yesterday, sort of previewing what to come and what to expect in this potentially final hearing, right? Adam Schiff, a member of the committee, said that is the plan unless they have some sort of other revelations that come after the fact. But this right now plans to be the last one. And they still have a lot to show in terms of how former President Trump did, in fact, what his actions were on the day of January 6th. Why it took him so long to call up the riot, sort of these details that were illustrated in the first 8 hearings. But the committee says they still have a lot to display and facts to show. We know they've been busy over the last 2 months since the 8th hearing, the last one that took place in July, interviewing other witnesses, hearing from people and securing cooperation, including from Ginny Thomas, who the panel expects to interview soon. We do not know yet at this point if she will be a part of Wednesday's testimony or not.
Julie, we also heard some new claims about what was allegedly happening at the White House on the day of the attack. Let's take a listen to what former GOP congressman, former committee staffer Denver Ringelman told 60 Minutes last night.
Do you get a real aha moment when you see that the White House switchboard had connected to a rioter's phone while it's happening? That's a pretty big aha moment. You get an aha.
Wait a minute. Someone in the White House was calling one of the rioters while the riot was going on?
On January 6th, absolutely.
So it's important to note that it's not clear who placed the call or whether they were even in a position of authority. But, Julie, how does this account by Ringelman fit into the evidence that the committee has already laid out? And bottom line, how significant is it if it's true?
Well, look, the first thing I should point out is that Denver Ringelman left the committee in April. So it's been a very long time since he's had sort of the inside scoop as to what the committee is working on. And we heard from Adam Schiff yesterday, who responded to this basically in real time. He said, look, we looked into every single allegation that Ringelman and others provided. There is a reason we did not mention this yet. And he sort of threw cold water on this idea. He said, I cannot say whether this in detail is true or not, but just big picture, to kind of, have a realistic picture of Ringelman's idea of the committee. He hasn't been with them for some time. He has a book coming out tomorrow. We know the committee isn't super thrilled about that. So we don't know exactly whether Ringelman's claim holds any water, but Schiff certainly threw cold water on it yesterday.
And Julie, just about 30 seconds left here, but we're also keeping an eye on the potential government shutdown that could happen at the end of the week if the lawmakers can't agree on this temporary funding bill. What are some hurdles to that bill?
Look, the big picture is there's no alarm bells ringing now. There's no one concerned, Republican or Democrat, that the government actually will shut down simply because we are weeks away from the midterm election. And in this current economy, there is no appetite for something like that to happen. But there are some real hurdles. We know, first of all, $12 billion in Ukraine aid is set to be a part of this, including disaster aid. We just heard from sources this morning, Fort Jackson, Mississippi, the water crisis, and things of that nature in the U.S. One big hangup right now is over permitting reform. Senator Manchin's proposal that Democrats like Bernie Sanders says goes against what climate groups want. It speeds up the permit approval process for drilling for oil, including the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia. Republicans, not sure if they want to support that either after Manchin's deal with Democrats to pass the Inflation Reduction Act in the summer. So we'll see what happens tomorrow when they come back.
Yeah, the midterms change that calculus. Julie Sirkin, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.